do you have the PowerPoint ready?
I don't really have the PowerPoint ready. I really kind of need the content, which Amanda was supposed to give me.
Well, Quinn never gave me a scope of what we're looking for.
We don't really have a scope because Jared's supposed to tell me how we're cutting the video. I can't do that.
Well, Amanda never gave me the script to write the video, so I couldn't do that either.
We can go on a loop about this all night, but Tim didn't even show up with the book.
Hi, I'm Quinn, an escalation analyst with Team 2. What you've just witnessed is a classic example of escalation in university project groups.
So escalation is an archetype of systems thinking. Systems thinking is the ability to integrate the critical elements of an organization and understand how each impacts the other.
In the fifth discipline, which is systems thinking, author Peter Senge encourages managers to look at problems from a holistic perspective.
Systems thinking is the principle which brings the other four principles together: shared vision, mental models, team learning, and personal mastery.
The focus of our presentation is the archetype of escalation, as it is described by the author, studied by our team, and presented with the relevant applications to know how the archetype is used in real life. Escalation can be usefully defined as an increase in the intensity or scope of conflict that crosses thresholds considered significant by one or more of the participants. Escalation is an archetype that is defined by the coordination of several loops that are the essence of systems and how they overlap with interpersonal stocks and flows. An escalation loop is a loop in which actors influence one another with a lose-lose situation as an outcome. An example is a price war between supermarkets where multiple competitors eventually fight one another over being the cheapest and none of them end up with the profit in the end. According to Senge, one should only encourage a culture and win-win situations are created.
A balancing loop is a structure representing a negative feedback process. In such a structure, a change in system leads to actions that usually eliminate the effect of that change, which means that the system tends to remain stable in time. A reinforcing loop is a structure representing a positive feedback process. This reinforcing feedback causes resultant actions that even a small change in the system can lead to a huge disturbance. For example, variable A is increased, which leads to an increase in variable B, which leads to another increase in A, and so there might be an exponential growth over time.
The dangers of systems with escalation archetypes are various. First, it might be difficult to identify the existence of the archetype at first sight. Then, the behavior of the system might look desirable at first, therefore, requiring no immediate action. Another risk is potential of exponential growth within such a structure. Finally, the system may have different outcomes in the short term and the long term. Because the escalation archetype behaves like a reinforcing loop, you can make a big change in the system with a little input, or a small action at the beginning can have drastically changed the end result.
First example shows the escalation dynamic continuing until it becomes out of control. Two kids, A and B, are in a classroom. Kid A accuses Kid B of copying his homework. Kid B responds by throwing a pencil at Kid A. Kid A responds by calling Kid B a bad name. Kid B then takes Kid A's backpack. Now Kid A threatens to tell the teacher on Kid B. Kid B pushes Kid A and a brawl ensues. Example 2 shows what happens when one party takes unilateral action. Business A sells wooden tables with no competition. Business B sees the high level of demand for the tables, so they enter the market. Business A decides to run a promotion offering free delivery now that Business B is in direct competition. Business B starts offering free delivery and a 10% discount to combat Business A's promotion. Business A, again, increases their discount to 15%, and Business B then increases their discount to 20%. Business A realizes that demand is high enough and that he is differentiated enough that he does not have to discount in order to retain a competitive advantage. So he stops offering discounts. Business B, realizing that Business A is no longer discounting his product, stops discounting their product as well. Business A took a unilateral action, which ended the escalation between the two and eliminates the threat. Example 3 shows a real-world escalation dynamic between two well-known companies, Apple and Samsung. In early 2007, Samsung CEO Lee Jae-yong visited Apple CEO Steve Jobs. Jobs allegedly showed the iPhone, an innovative new technology called a smartphone, to Yong prior to publicly announcing the product. Jobs disassembled the device, explained in detail the technology behind developing the new product. 2 years later, Samsung releases their new smartphone called the Galaxy S. Apple saw the similarities between their iPhone and Samsung's Galaxy as beyond coincidental, and they claim that Samsung stole their product design. In 2010, Apple went to Samsung with their accusations and offered them a deal where Samsung would pay Apple $30 for every smartphone sold and $40 for every tablet sold. Samsung declines the deal and continues to sell their Galaxy smartphone. Apple filed suit against Samsung in 2011 for trade dress infringement, trademark infringement, and infringement of design patents, among other assertions. The court ruled in Apple's favor and ordered Samsung to pay them $1 billion for the infringement. Samsung, in return, filed an appeal of the court's decision, as well as a countersuit alleging that Apple infringed on their cellular data patent. Apple and Samsung continued to file suits and countersuits for 7 years, culminating in 2018 when the two parties came to an undisclosed settlement, ending the litigation. Throughout this escalation cycle, Apple and Samsung still engaged in business together. Samsung supplied Apple with OLED displays and memory chips that were integral components for producing the iPhone. Samsung reportedly earned $14 billion of revenue from Apple alone, which was greater than Samsung's revenue from their own smartphone. After the litigation, Apple and Samsung went a step further and teamed up cooperatively. Samsung TV now included iTunes and the Apple Store, where consumers could access Apple movies and shows. This helped Samsung to sell more TVs, and this helped Apple to reach new customers. How do you break out of an escalation dynamic? There are 7 steps that can help you break out of an escalation dynamic. Number 1, pinpoint the competitive variable. What is the focus of the competition? For Apple and Samsung, the competitive variable is the intellectual property relating to the smartphone technology. 2, identify the parties involved. Who is contributing to the escalation dynamic? For Apple and Samsung, the escalation trap is between Apple and Samsung directly. However, the conflict originated from a meeting between Steve Jobs, Apple, and Lee Jae-yong, Samsung, where Jobs allegedly showed Yong Apple's new smartphone, the iPhone, prior to announcing the new technology publicly. Jobs disassembled the phone, explained to Yong the technology, and basically detailed the entire design. 3, distinguish what is being threatened. What is driving one party to retaliate against the other? 2 years after Jobs allegedly showed Yong the iPhone technology, Samsung released their first smartphone, the Galaxy S. Because the similarities between the iPhone and the Galaxy S were beyond coincidental, Apple believed that Samsung infringed on their intellectual property, which at the time was cutting edge, creating a threat to their technology. 4, Determine the relative measure driving the conflict. What is the relative measure that pits one party against the other? Both Apple and Samsung claim that the opposing party has infringed on their intellectual property relating to the smartphone technology. 5. Evaluate delays. What is the long-term effect of the delays caused by an escalation dynamic? The litigation process cost both parties time and money. Despite each party celebrating victories along the way, short-term satisfaction, they wound up incurring significantly more costs funding the 7-year litigation process, long-term dissatisfaction. 6. Identify a larger goal. What is the objective overall that incorporates both parties' goals? After 7 long years of back and forth lawsuits, Apple and Samsung came to an undisclosed settlement ending the escalation dynamic. Despite being competitors, Apple and Samsung provided significant value to each other. Samsung supplied Apple with OLED screens and memory chips, which were essential to the production of the iPhone, and Apple provided Samsung with a significant source of revenue for buying these components. The shared goal is to generate profit. Apple could not do that without the component pieces, which at the time only Samsung could supply, and Samsung received $14 billion in revenue from Apple alone, which was significantly more than they had earned from their own smart devices. Number 7. Learn how to avoid the escalation traps. Cutthroat competition serves no one, whereas collaborative competition can add value, creating a win-win situation. Following the end of the litigation, Apple and Samsung announced a deal where they partnered together to increase profits. Apple granted Samsung permission to include iTunes, Apple TV, and the Apple Store in their line of smart TVs. The partnership would help Samsung sell more TVs to a broader market. Apple services such as these were previously only accessible through Apple devices and would allow Apple to sell more movies, music, and shows because of the larger customer base. A win-win situation.
Hi, thanks for watching our video. We have a short conclusion for you. Check it out.
You've just watched our presentation on escalation and how it relates to systems thinking in the 5 disciplines.
We've also provided you with examples of escalation dynamics and shown you how to use unilateral action or the 7 steps to break free of those dynamics.
Hello, neighbor. Thanks for watching our video. We have one more short message for you.
Don't forget to play our game. Our ranking depends on your score.